Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to our webinar, Trash Talk, How Students Can Tackle Fast Fashion. I'm really excited to be presenting this with my fellow Student Perg co-hosts. So yeah, let's first give a little introduction. So my name is Catherine Horvath. I'm the Waste is Out of Fashion campaign associate with PERG. So I work for our national organization on running this campaign, but I'm based up in Seattle, Washington. So if any Seattleite UW students are here, go dogs. And then we'll also have Sophia Angeles talking. She's our Waste is Out of Fashion campaign coordinator down in UCLA. And then Priscilla Moreno is the Waste is Out of Fashion campaign coordinator on the University of Oregon. And they both work alongside the student PERGs on those campuses. Just to give a little brief outline of how this will go, I'm just going to walk through the problems with the fashion industry and their environmental impact, just laying out the general issue that our campaign is about, and then how we are running our campaign nationally. Then Priscilla will be covering the basics to running a campaign on your campus. She'll talk about how we know that it's a good campaign, the criteria in selecting it, why students should care, how to start the campaign off, and then she'll share some great event examples that they've been doing in Oregon. And then Sophia will be covering more of the campaign tactics and strategy, and outlining the importance of visibility events as well. And then if you have any questions, you can always put them in the chat and we'll see if we can answer some at the end. We'll also be putting in some links throughout the webinar that will be in the chat as well for you guys to see. Awesome. Just to introduce PERG, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the Public Interest Research Group, we're a national nonprofit public interest advocacy organization. We work on various issues advocating for consumers like healthcare, zero waste, consumer protection. These are just some of the photos from the past year or two from PERG across the nation. And then we also work with Environment America. So that upper right-hand photo, that's our Environment Washington advocate, Pam. Perfect. So just to start off, what is the problem with fashion? We all wear clothes. This is literally relevant to everybody. So it's important to know what actually is going on in the fashion industry. Just in general, making clothing is a really resource intensive process. So those natural fibers like cotton and wool, which is what all clothing used to be made out of, they require a lot of water, chemicals, and pesticides. So when you're growing those crops, farmers are spraying those on them. And then also it requires a lot of land. So one cotton t-shirt requires 700 gallons of water, which is over a year's worth of drinking water. And that goes through the whole production process, like all the water that's required when you're growing that cotton on the land. And then 2.5% of our global farmland is used to grow cotton for clothing, which, if you think about it, we're often in this crisis of hunger and trying to feed the world. And we're using so much of our global farmland for cotton that just is going to make clothing. So it's a pretty significant amount. And then the other type of fibers are synthetic fibers, which is like polyester, spandex, fleece, nylon. These are all made from oil. Also plastic. Plastic is made from oil. So this is all derived from oil. 342 million barrels of oil are needed to make the synthetic fibers that we use for clothing every year. So obviously the oil and gas industry has a huge impact on our climate and climate change. So it's important to know how the fashion industry is actually really tied into this and has a lot of pollution effects as well from that. Overall, the fashion industry is responsible for 10% of our global carbon emissions, which again, as it relates to global warming, carbon emissions are what accelerates our Earth warming. And the fashion industry has a huge impact on that. They're also responsible for 20% of global water waste. So this comes from the leaching of chemicals and hazardous dyes that are used in the dyeing and treatment processes of dyeing your shirt or dyeing that pair of jeans. Those can all lead off into our waterways, as well as those pesticides and chemicals that are used on the land also can pollute our water. And then a little bit lesser known is that the fashion industry is responsible for 35% of microplastics that are found in our ocean, which, if you remember that synthetic fabrics are made from plastic, those every time they're washed, so either in that manufacturing process or when you wash your leggings or your sports bra or anything like that at home, that process actually releases microplastic fibers into our waterways, and those end up in our oceans and actually contribute a really significant amount of our microplastic pollution in the oceans comes from our fashion. So overall, at this point in time, we're producing 100 billion items of clothing every year, and that's doubled since the year 2000. So we're only on this increasing trajectory of making more and more and more clothes than we can even wear. And a lot of that is evident through how much waste we create as well. So out of all the 100 billion clothing items that are produced every year, 30% of it is never even sold or worn and is likely headed to the nearest landfill or incinerator. This comes a lot from the fashion industry, especially fast fashion, because as those really fast clothing trends come out, companies have to produce really quickly a new line of clothing. And then a lot of that has to shift out of the way because they'll have, you know, clothing from 2 weeks ago, that release, still sitting on the shelves, and they have to make space for the new trend and the new products. So they end up throwing them or burning them in order to make way. On the consumer side, Americans throw away an estimated 17 million tons of textiles every year, which is enough to fill the Mall of America every 6 days. So we ourselves are generating massive amounts of textile waste, which is very different from how clothing use used to be. If you think back to, early 1900s, people would be making their own clothes, repairing them, mending them, keeping an item of clothing that's really good quality for a really long period of time. But now we're in such a disposable mindset as a society of constantly buying new clothes and getting rid of them as well. So where does all this clothing waste go? This is data from 2018 in the US. So 66% of it ends up in landfills, which, as you may know, landfills release methane, which is really toxic greenhouse gas, contributing to global warming. 18% of them get incinerated or burned, which obviously also releases greenhouse gases into our atmosphere. And then also when those synthetic fabrics are burned, they can release microplastic fibers into the air, which is even worse for air pollution. And then only 15% of clothing that's thrown away gets recycled or downcycled. So some of our strategies to address the issue of fashion waste, first we have producer responsibility. So we think that producers should take financial responsibility for the waste that they're creating. A second strategy is restricting the disposal of textiles. So, for example, we may support a city bill that bans textiles from being incinerated, so finding alternative routes for the disposal. And then finally, corporate accountability. So we think corporations should be taking an accountability for the clothing and the waste that they generate. So the way that we're adapting this right now, we have our corporate campaign as part of the Waste is Out of Fashion campaign. We're first targeting Forever 21, which is a pretty well-known fast fashion brand that's very popular among younger generations. We have our petition right now, which you can actually scan that QR code with your phone and sign. But the petition calls on the CEO of Forever 21 to publicly commit to not trash or burn their overstock. We know that a lot of companies do this, and we really want Forever 21 to take that step in public commitment of committing to more sustainable practices. And so we're doing this by raising a lot of public support and awareness, and then also generating that petition, which if you don't get a chance to sign, I think Priscilla or Sophia will be able to put that link in the chat. And then our other campaign strategy right now, we have this collection called Voices for Sustainable Fashion, where this is just a photo from the website, but you can read about a lot of the people, including a lot of students from around the world, really, who are working really hard to advance sustainability in fashion. We really want to amplify different people's stories and their voices by giving them a chance to talk about the good work that they're doing, and just to show people that it's not as dire as it seems, and there's a lot of people who are actively working to advance sustainability. So if you're interested in looking at the form, I'd love for any and all of you to also submit your own story, just talking about why you care about sustainable fashion. And you can do that by scanning that QR code down there. Awesome. So now I'll turn it over to Priscilla, and hopefully you can come off mute.
Yes, amazing. I'm super excited to be talking about Wastes Out of Fashion, what that looks like on a campus. And to introduce myself really quickly, my name is Priscilla. I'm a second-year political science major and legal studies minor at the University of Oregon. And I'm the vice chair of OSPRG and also leading this campaign at the University of Oregon. So yes, what are Student Perks? I'm super honored to introduce Student Perks to you if you aren't already familiar with us and the work we do. We actually started at the University of Oregon over 50 years ago when a man named Donald Ross came to speak to students about this idea of action for a change, and that was all about mobilizing young people to create the change that you want to see in the world. And coming out of that presentation, a lot of students at the University of Oregon felt really inspired to create their own public interest network, and which is now known as the Student Perks. And they started the first one, which is OSPRG, Oregon Student Public Interest Research Group. So since then, the Student Perks have expanded to being present on over 100 campuses nationwide, giving students the tools and resources to solve issues that they care about. And while we all believe in the same mission, our campaigns look a little bit different depending on where you're at, because certain areas call for different issues that are relevant there. So here at the University of Oregon and OSPRG, we're working on a wide range of issues like solving hunger and homelessness in our city and tackling fast fashion, but also federally calling for more affordable textbook costs for students. So with that being said, one of the campaigns we're running and leading with actually for the past 2 terms has been Waste is Out of Fashion. And yeah, with a little bit of background on what PERG is, as I said, we all have different campaigns, but we do select them on a basis of criteria. And when students in OSPRG were discussing which campaigns we wanted to run, and we're looking at Wastes Out of Fashion, we noticed that this campaign is particularly strong in these 3 areas. The first being that it's profound. As Catherine was talking about, this is an issue of abundance. There's so much clothes and an overconsumption of clothes. And it also tackles climate change, which we know affects everybody. So those are just 2 ways that we know this issue is really profound. Also, it recruits very well. We need people power to do pretty much anything when it comes to social and environmental change. So we've noticed that when we go out and talk to students about tackling the issue of fast fashion, they're really excited to work on it and they're with us on the issue. And it gets heads nodding and hearts pumping. Given our track record of corporate campaigns, when students know that they can win, they're definitely on board with solving the issue. And number 3, it positions us to take on more. So it would be nice if we ran this campaign and then the problem of fast fashion just disappeared, but that's not the case because Forever 21 is just one company. But as we build momentum from this campaign, we can then go on and talk to other companies about the path that we led Forever 21 on to more sustainable practices. And as Catherine spoke on briefly, and Sophia will talk on more, we can also build momentum with students and build relationships with legislators to introduce a landfill ban on textile waste, which would be really cool. So this is just one step, and it really puts us on a path to do even more cool things. So why should students care about this? Well, for starters, companies like Forever 21 target the younger demographic. They're constantly pumping out ads that appeal to us, and we're the people that they want profit from. So they're interested in continuing to influence us to buy their clothes, which means that us taking a stand can make a really big difference. And the impacts of fast fashion on climate change will actually impact our future the most. Like Catherine was talking about, all the pollution, those will impact our future lives and our children's future lives, and so on and so forth. And we can actually make the biggest impact. I spoke briefly on our track record on corporate campaigns. We were successful in getting KFC to stop using antibiotics in their chicken. So we can definitely do it again. And we have also a lot of other wins under our belt, most recently Right to Repair in Oregon, which gives Oregonians the right to fix their own stuff. And that tackled a super huge waste problem in the United States, which is tech waste. Phones and such and technology are made purposefully difficult to repair, so we can't use it for long enough. And that was a really vital part of students' lives because we use technology for everything. So students leading on this issue made it really clear to policymakers that it's something that we needed. So that was really successful, and we passed that recently. And we also banned polystyrene in Oregon. We started with a city ban back in 2019, and we were successful in passing a statewide ban just last year. So we can definitely make a change, and I have some cute photos there of us talking to legislative staff, and then also our lobby day to ban polystyrene is really awesome. So a little bit about getting started on your campus and some of what Osberg did. First, you want to start talking to people, which is recruiting. There's several ways that you can do this. A really effective way is asking professors to present in their classes. I think in the past 2 terms, we've gone to over 100 classrooms and led with the story of fast fashion and ways to get involved. And we've gained a lot of interest, not only in working on the campaign, but also just being in Osberg and getting people excited about making change. You can also send out emails to departments and ask them to send out an interest form. And then, of course, you can speak at clubs and organizations, whether they align with environmental work that you're doing or not. I'm sure they would be happy to have you because students working together is awesome. And number 2, you're going to want to have a meeting. I have a little photo there at the top of our little brainstorming session meeting that we had where we talked about what we want to do this term. So you're going to want to brainstorm strategic tactics and make plans. We decided here at the University of Oregon that petitions and social media posts were going to be the most effective way to get the attention of the CEO of Forever 21. We're already on social media anyways, so utilizing that to our advantage and knowing the power in it is really important. And then also petitions. We go out there and we ask students to sign a petition that will be dropped off to Forever 21 headquarters. And then a little bit of an underlying strategic tactic that we had was just education on the fast fashion problem. This past term, we ran a sustainable fashion swap, which aimed to just talk about fast fashion, the problem, and little things that you can do as well to mitigate that issue and talk to your friends about it in a really fun way. And then get people excited about the work that they can do. You can have leadership opportunities, even if it's really small, like you're going to be in charge of printing out the petitions. It just makes people feel like they have a really big role to play in this bigger goal, which is true. I mean, without the petitions, you can't really get people to sign them and so on. So that's a really cool way to get your team excited. And then lastly, you want to run a really super cool, fun event. So that's just getting campus excited and involved. You can invite other organizations, other clubs. And like I said, we ran a sustainable fashion swap and we were able to partner with Greek Life, which was really exciting. Local neighborhoods, clubs, and our football team, they all worked together to donate over 1,000 clothes, which half of them were swapped and the other half was donated to a share fair, which benefits our houseless community in Eugene. And I have some super cute pictures. I love it. Okay, so we did a cute chalking event. And we basically went out there and wrote messages to Forever 21 and posted them on social media, tagged them, used the hashtag Waste is Out of Fashion there, and also just pictures of the tons of clothes that we got for the fashion swap. It was so awesome the way that our community came together to donate their unwanted clothes. It probably would have ended up in the trash anyways. So it's really awesome that we were able to do that. And then some photos of us petitioning and getting people involved and just being able to have really awesome conversations with them about the work that we're doing.
Hi everyone. My name is Sophia. I'm a second year at UCLA, studying climate science, and I'm also the campaign coordinator for the Waste Out of Fashion campaign at UCLA. I wanted to talk about like the campaign that we worked on, like specific to UCLA or specifically at UCLA. So we, in the fall, worked on the Forever 21 campaign, which we focused on a lot of the same tactics that Priscilla talked about, building grassroots support through petition and education tables, media engagement through our own social media, as well as LTEs, which are letters to the editor. Those are like really great tools. Basically, it's like a little blurb that you send in to like a newspaper or magazine, and then to demonstrate that the public cares about the issue and increase visibility. And these can also be like really great if you send them into the corporation or legislator that you're targeting. And then so in the winter, we transitioned to a slightly different campaign. Um, that's specific to California. It's a legislative campaign, so we changed our tactics just a little bit. We've still done the same type of grassroots and media work, but we've also added in more broad visibility events and writing into legislators' office. Another really fun thing that we got to do with this campaign was hold a lobby day. Basically, with that, we just set up meetings with legislators and advocate on the behalf of the bill. This is actually something anyone can do. You don't have to be part of any organization. All you have to do is set up a meeting with your legislator through their office website. And it can be a great visibility event, and legislators love to hear from students. And we've included like a picture from our past lobby day. And then speaking of visibility events, they're a great way to get like more eyes on the campaign. What an event that we had in the past was a collaborative art event in which we like sourced used clothing from another student organization that had either like been there for a really long time or was damaged, so it like would never have been used, and created a sculpture of a dress with all of the discarded clothing. This was not only a really fun event, but it combined a lot of our campaign tactics and goals. We included and engaged other clubs on campus in coalition building. We got to educate everyone that attended the event. We collected physical and photo petitions, and we also sent out press releases to media groups about the event. Some big things that I learned and I think are important to keep in mind when planning a visibility event is to promote as much as possible. This can be like through social media, through your campus department letters, physical flyering, but I would just suggest to do as much promotion as possible. If you're going through social media, I would recommend to do an initial post about it 1 week before the event, and then a second one 1 to 2 days before. And then another thing is to engage media as much as you can. So like invite them to the event, send out press releases, like, and try and include photos of that, and or get high profile people to come to the event. So like Congress people or like professors on your campus that work with similar things. And that can be like a really great way to like get more eyes on your issue. And then, so I want to talk a little bit more about the specific campaign we're working on, which is supporting Senate Bill 707 in California. It's a producer responsibility bill. So basically, it would enact like the Responsible Textile Recovery Act that was introduced in 2023 and require producers to establish a stewardship program for the collection of and recycling of any clothing item that can no longer be used. This is really important because like Catherine said at the beginning, so many clothes nowadays aren't really built to last and break down really quickly. And then so instead, these garments will be recycled instead of ending up in the landfill. And even donated items that are going to thrift stores are like, the majority of it does end up being thrown away because of how much they receive. And so this bill would allow for that to be recycled rather than trashed.
Awesome. Well, that pretty much concludes it. I hope I can get out of this and see the chat. But thank you all for joining us, and for those watching in the future. We really appreciate that. If anybody has any questions, especially if you aren't part of a Student PIRG chapter and you're interested in doing any of these events or even running the campaign on your own campus, please feel free to email any of us. I have our emails down there, and I'll also send those out in our email afterwards. We also have a whole resource packet, a Google Drive, with all of the resources from this. It has event ideas, a lot of really great facts with all of our sources that you can use, instructions on how to write a letter to the editor. So that's something that you could do on your own, or you could do that with friends, or with your group as a fun event. And then also just our overall campaign strategy and outlining all of that work. So please feel free to use that and share it. That'll go out in our email afterwards. And then I also really suggest that everybody signs that Forever 21 petition and reads through the Voices for Sustainable Fashion. I'm loving doing that. It's so fun to get all these students. I think both Priscilla and Sophia have already submitted their stories, so you can read their submissions and read about some other really cool people. And then also just submit something on your own. It doesn't have to be long. You can just talk about why you're passionate about sustainable fashion, and it really helps to build the momentum and the public education around this. So yes, let me try and stop sharing my screen, hopefully, and then we can see. Ooh, okay. Let me open the chat. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask them. I can put those links in the chat too. You guys can't see my screen anymore, right? Okay, awesome. I'll put those in, and then I'll also send them out in the email. All right, here's the Google Drive with the folder. Here's the Forever 21 petition. Hopefully you're able to scan that QR code, but in case not, it'll be there. And then here's the Voices for Sustainable Fashion, the collection that you can read through online, and then also the form where you can submit yourself. It doesn't look like any questions are coming in, so I think that's the conclusion of it. Thank you all so much for coming. I hope you learned a lot and benefited from this. We really enjoyed putting this together for you all. And we all really love working on this campaign. So I hope you guys take the opportunity to either start the campaign on your own campus in your own PIRG chapter, or just run some of the events and raise more awareness and public education around fast fashion and sustainable fashion. So yeah, thank you all so much for coming. I hope you have a great rest of your day.